said he didn't see it there.
It's in this week's update.
I told him. You just emailed it?
Yes. You got it this morning, and I just emailed it again. On the first page, where it says Monday,
I told him you just emailed it. We don't have time for this. All right, well, I'll email me here. Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Yell through the mask. Hey up there. Thank you for joining, coming out. We will start the meeting. If you could raise and join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have some guests with us tonight. So what I'd like to do is, if I can get a motion, or I'll make a motion, to change the agenda and move item 6 up to 2A, which would be next. Is there a second to that? Nancy, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So with that, we have the honor of recognizing some of our great people. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul now to do some introductions.
Thank you very much. We're excited to introduce you to 3 of our faculty members who were nominated by their peers or community members and then selected by a panel in each case. And we're going to start tonight with our Para-Educator of the Year, Ms. Melody Philhauer.
Right down here.
I'll put you in the live stream here. You would come down.
Come on, Melody.
And Melody, you've got your family with you. Would you mind introducing them to the board?
Okay, I have my husband, Mark, my son, Mark, and his wife, Andrea, and their children, Sophia and Sam. Wait.
Sam, Sophia waved, but you were a little shy there. Do you want to wave to everybody?
There you go.
Thank you all for coming. And Mary Clark is going to introduce Mel and her accomplishments.
It's my honor to speak on Mel's behalf tonight. I hope you can hear me well. Melody Philhauer exhibits an incredibly high work ethic and expects the same of the students she works with. When you enter the classroom space where Mel supports small groups of students, you will definitely see evidence of her masterful instruction. In working with high-needs students, Mel has been adept in helping to modify lesson content so that all students can participate in group lessons, yet still be successful at meeting the goals set for them. She also actively seeks out alternative texts to support units and consistently consults with the literacy team to best meet the needs of all students. Melody's work in classrooms is always seamless. Despite supporting other classrooms and at times arriving mid-lesson, she has become an expert at recognizing the teaching point for the day, assessing the needs of the learners, and immediately beginning small group or individual conferring work. Her copious notes from each unit that outline what worked and what to improve are incredibly effective in helping meet the needs of all learners in the classroom. Melody's dedication to students extends beyond the academic curriculum. That is my phone. Forgive me. That's okay. Her dedication to students.
My fault.
I have one of these, but my button's clearly different.
Mel's dedication to students, I apologize for that. Mel's dedication to students extends beyond the academic curriculum. She facilitates and crafts classes during indoor recess that are much anticipated and looked forward to by all students. In fact, the call for indoor recess is met with very few groans of dismay. One of Melody's other strong attributes is the time and effort she takes to get to know students on an individual level. Drawing from the personal information she has learned from them, she contributed to the positive classroom community of learners we share. Without a doubt, Melody is a valuable and important member of the Center School family. Everyone at Center School feels truly blessed to have such an exceptional paraeducator as part of our staff for the past 20 years. Her commitment and dedication to both the students and staff of the school community make Mel Philhauer worthy of being recognized as the 2020 Paraeducator of the Year. And I just want to say on a personal note, I'm so thrilled for you. This is so well deserved. I think Mel just truly reaches out to each student, gets to know them as an individual, and makes them feel welcome and appreciated at school each day. So congratulations. Thank you.
Chris.
Mel, I did take it out of the box because it's a little wet on the
Oh,
bottom.
it's beautiful, thank you.
Chris, come down with a picture.
We'll stay about a foot apart.
Yeah,
Just
you move it, but next to Mel.
All right. 2, 3. One more. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Great job, Mel.
Next, we're going to introduce you to our Rookie Teacher of the Year, Eric Artikas. Eric is anything but a rookie. She taught for us for a year, and then due to budget cuts, we lost her. But last year, we were able to get her back. So we are thrilled to pieces that the committee recognized her as our Rookie Teacher of the Year. Come on down, Eric. Introduce your guests.
So I have my mom, Irene Artikas, and my fiance, Matt.
That's a new title we have to say.
Erica's impact on students she teaches is quite apparent before you even enter her classroom. She strongly believes that building strong personal relationships is key to creating a positive classroom community. Erica possesses a seamless skill in incorporating this information into her lesson planning, which encourages and motivates even her most reluctant learners. She works tirelessly to create an environment in her classroom where children thrive by feeling confident to take risks, make choices, share opinions, and most of all, grow to be kind and caring individuals. Her frequent ongoing communication with parents reflects her belief that a strong home-school connection is vital to help her students flourish in the classroom. In addition to her positive impact on her students, Erica has distinguished herself as a leader at Center School. Despite her rookie status, Erica is quite knowledgeable with both the workshop model for teaching math as well as NGSS science practices. She is adept at incorporating hands-on manipulatives into her lessons, leading her students through inquiry-based investigations and differentiating instruction to meet the needs of all learners. Her creativity in developing centers to reinforce and enrich concepts that have been taught, as well as her spot-on classroom management, keeps students productively engaged and motivated. In addition to her classroom responsibilities, this year Erica was an advisor to the Center School Press, our school newspaper. Through her vision, this year students received actual press badges and became reporters at school-wide events. Her contributions to our school PBIS committee resulted in new ideas to reward students for their reward behaviors. She celebrated the diversity of students, honored our veterans, and spread kindness like a ripple through student artwork displayed throughout the year in our hallways. For her dedication and commitment to our students, as well as the staff at Center School, Erica Artikas has distinguished herself as an excellent role model for the East Hampton public school system. On behalf of all of Center School, congratulations to Erica for being named the 2020 Rookie Teacher of the Year.
It's great to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Thank you.
One more.
the Memorial School, Teacher of the Year, Dr. Christy Fresco-Lars. School psychologist, while she does spend some time at the Center School, most of her day is at Memorial School, so Andy Gonzalez and Brady Kadori can introduce her. Christy, if you would come down, please. And Christy, if we could ask you to introduce your guests as well.
Sure. I have my husband Chris and my daughter Delaney.
Thank you both for coming.
It's really an honor to celebrate Christy this evening, but we share her across the district. So she is also largely responsible for supporting the STARS program at Center School and now in middle school. What matters more than the promise of each individual child? While our best students make our jobs easier, it is our most challenging and troubled students who make our jobs vitally important. As chosen educators, we are privileged to be entrusted with their futures. Being entrusted is not enough. We must also have the compassion and skills to truly make a difference and lead them through adversity and trauma. Christy Fresco-Lars valiantly leads these efforts in our district STARS programs. Confucius affirmed, education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, hope breeds peace. When every child confidently feels a strong sense of purpose and belonging, then we shall have peace in our hearts, in our classrooms, on our playgrounds, in our neighborhoods and cities, and in our world. What's more worth fighting for than the promise of each individual child? Christy relentlessly advocates for East Hampton's most vulnerable students and their families, and she has been an invaluable resource to every staff member. She effectively communicates with students, families, colleagues, and community members. Battles are seldom won alone. As dedicated collaborative teams and with Christy's leadership, we have the inspiration, talents, resources, and programs to successfully educate every child. Christy emphatically and compassionately cares. She listens, she mentors, she coaches, she communicates, she co-teaches, she provides, she inspires hope, she pushes up her sleeves and never hesitates to dare greatly in the arena of challenge and vulnerability. Christy wins battles. And for this, Christy Fresco-Lars represents East Hampton with distinction as our 2020-2021 Teacher of the Year.
Yeah, I would just echo what Brandy has said there. It gives me chills hearing that for the second time. And for those of you who weren't there at convocation, Christy also gave an inspirational speech that we followed up with at school about the choices that we can make each day. And, you know, I've been reflective about that. So in addition to that, I would just like to say thank you to Christy for mentoring me and helping me grow each day.
Doing good work there.
Am I trying, you know? Not like the work there.
Hold on. Okay. Okay, last one, I promise. Thank you.
So with that, why don't we take a 10-minute break? There are some treats, snacks outside for everyone to share and congratulate our...
We usually have a cake, but in the time of COVID, we have individual cupcakes.
Yep.
So,
So, thank you.
yes, I know a couple people who would be very happy.
10 minutes, 45, okay.
How's the first year going so far?
I'm waiting for you to get marked out.
Who are we missing? Nancy's over there talking with Paul. Come on. Oh, worse than the kids, you know? Oh. If Irene is all set? Irene? You're all set. Okay, we're good. All right, thank you, everyone. We're back. So before we continue, we're going to get into updates and things, but we'd like to welcome the students back for this meeting. So take a minute. I know you guys are going to do a report later, but introduce yourselves.
I'm Bobby Balda. I'm a senior here at East Hampton High.
I'm Ann Bailey. I'm a junior here at East Hampton.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Yes. Good. Okay, so interboard liaisons. Trying to look. We don't have any guests here. We do, but Board of Finance, Mr. Hine. Any Board of Finance?
No, just here, one time you spend our money.
Okay, that's fine. You can do that. The labor union representation, all for you. Any comments, updates, questions?
Not too much. I mean, I just will say anecdotally, so far so good with kids wearing masks and following proper protocols. The challenge is just trying to get the kids to stay more socially distant. They just want to kind of be together, so we're just reminding them. So we're just hoping that evolves positively. So if and when we go back full, they can
It'll be a little easier.
That. That's it. Yeah.
And how are all the teachers holding up, not just the students?
Overall, I mean, it's, we go in and everyone's upbeat and, we stay together and, teachers are holding together pretty well. So.
Good.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, I've heard nothing but positive comments from all the schools and the staff and the teachers and how everything's going, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Turn it over. Mary, Director of Curriculum, updates from you.
Sure, I'll talk. I know the principals are going to talk a lot about the reopening. I'll just share we had a different reopening professional learning schedule this year. The State Board of Education gave us some flexibility and additional time to dedicate to professional learning. And we really felt that was critical this year given the significant numbers of changes to routines and protocols in the buildings, as well as some of the new resources and instructional models that the teachers had to prepare for. So the teachers came in the week of August 24th, on the 25th, 26th, and 27th, and then again the following week on September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And the feedback we heard a lot from teachers, we're still doing the formal professional learning survey, was that the way we arranged that time was supportive because there was a lot to receive in terms of information and process. There was time for teachers to dedicate to their classroom environment, which really required a lot of changes, to collaborate. We designed the 2 weeks of the first week, kind of adopting a hierarchy of needs perspective, was more about operations, facilities, safety, classroom environment, to kind of focus on how that was all going to operate. And then the second week was more focused on the needs of the learner, their social emotional well-being and programming, and then curriculum and instruction. So everybody could get settled first and then focus on the work with the students. And I think that model proved to be positive and supportive. There was still more to do that we really had time for, but we got through a lot of meaningful content in those 2 weeks, and teachers had time to process all that information. So that was a really big planning project for us and an investment of time. At this point, we're really focused on now the different instructional models that we have going on simultaneously, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the evening, but we are very focused right now on how our hybrid model is working. So we have our A students, our Synchronous Wednesdays, and then our B students in the second half of the week, so making sure the instructional planning for each of those kinds of environments is seamless for students. We are also developing and launching our remote learning programming as well, which is for students who will be learning entirely from home. So that's the whole another model that we're working through. And then finally, we're also integrating new expectations from the State Department of Education when it comes to things like attendance reporting, for example, and making sure we account for students in all of those locations each day. So those are some of the things we're working on. But I'll talk a little bit more in depth about the hybrid versus remote later in the program. And then lastly, We have directed teachers to really focus on reorienting and welcoming students back to schools, building community and focusing on relationships. And this week we started to transition more into academic learning and continue to build on that and moving into some of our assessment practices to gauge where students are from the spring through the summer and into their reentry to the schools. So moving through that.
Okay. So for the schools, I would just want to add this part when you guys give updates. If there are, especially with the way things are going and they're reopening, concerns, challenges, issues, I know you guys spend a lot of time talking with Paul and Mary and brainstorming and problem solving, but you know, anything we can do to help, please tell us ideas, whatever you need. So with that, who would like to start?
So back to school really has been amazing. So nice to have our learners in the classrooms again. Long list of people to thank, because it truly has been a team effort. I'll start with the students, you know, kind of branching off what Neil said. I've been really impressed by our youngest learners in the community, how well they've been able to maintain wearing their masks on. I think they are definitely benefiting from the mask breaks that we built in from the other times to be able to take their masks off outside while they're socially distanced. Keeping them apart while at recess and in the hallways is something we're really working hard to do. If you walk by Memorial and you see zombie walk happening, you know, that's one of the ways that we're trying to keep them at least an arm's distance apart. So I'm really proud of them. Families have been extremely supportive during the reopening period leading up to it and in the first couple of weeks. The patience during arrival and dismissal is much appreciated, and we're working to get better and better every day. Along that line, you know, thank the East Hampton Police Department for being there to support that arrival and dismissal process. And to our teaching team, you know, just publicly praise them for their efforts, their planning, collaboration, communication is really top notch. Our IT team, the cafeteria staff are delivering meals to our kids. The IT team they received all the Chromebooks, prepared them, and we're going to distribute all of them. Our facilities team is cleaning touch surfaces multiple times a day. So like I said, truly a team effort. I'll end by thanking Lauren Hebler, a community member and a parent who donated face shields to our building.
Nice.
And to echo that sentiment, it's really just been a collaborative effort from every member of the school community and the community at large. Couldn't have done it without the support of everybody in this room and parents, staff, students. Just been so impressed, and it's almost you know, like there was a collective sigh of relief after the students came back in the building that it's like things are, you know, it's back to teaching and learning. It's like that muscle memory starts to kick in again. Well, you know, why we went into this profession and what we love. And it's ignited in a completely different way because you have kind of a different set of rules that we need to follow. And I think that was kind of inspiring for some of our educators that may have been in the profession for quite some time of like, hey, I need to think about this a little bit of a different way. And you know, having the conversations with staff as they came back into the building, overall just being excited to be with the students again and have students in the hallways. So collectively, it's just been outstanding. You know, I couldn't have dreamt of a better opening given the circumstances. And you know, it's because of the team that we have here in East Hampton. So and I appreciate that for sure. And would also like to just do a special thanks for Sue Freeman, which I'm sure you know will be some future recognition. But the Memorial and Center School Unified Sports Programs have been awarded the Special Olympics Unified Champions Schools National Recognition. So a tribute to that program and how much it means to our students and the community. All the student volunteers, and especially Sue for taking the lead on that. She's done an excellent job.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the middle school matches all of those things. It's really been an incredible opening. I think that some of the kind of angst and pressure that teachers and just staff members felt kind of preparing for all of it was just, as soon as the students came back, it just felt a lot better. You know, they added to the day, although it's a little different. You know, seeing everybody in masks and physically distanced in certain areas of the building, which middle schoolers are usually not at all. I think it's just a retraining a little bit. And, you know, as Chris mentioned, I think it provides a lot of opportunity for our teachers and our students to just think outside the box a little bit, especially for our teachers who, you know, in middle school, you get into kind of the content of what you teach, and you know you can become a little siloed. I think that this has opened that back up. I look at that as a really great teaching opportunity for them and for us to grow as a school. And parents have been great, super supportive, very flexible. I think that our procedures have gone very well, considering. And it's actually very hard to believe that this is only week 2. So.
I mean, I could literally just say ditto and move on. That wouldn't do justice to the work that everyone's done in the district and in high school. You know, it was awesome to see the kids the first day of school, and I would echo kind of everyone's sentiments. I find myself walking around the building saying, okay, put your arms out, put your arms down. That's 6 feet apart. But other than that, it's been great. The kids are wearing masks, you know, adjusting to one-way hallways, adjusting to a staggered dismissal, a staggered entry, and I couldn't be prouder of the work they've done, and the teachers have been, you know, we had quite a lot of questions to start because it was new to everybody, but you know, I think after 6 days of listening to me drone on and on about how it's going to take a little longer, they were happy to get to what they do best, which is the first day of school. And
in other words, stop talking.
Exactly. Exactly. And the custodial staff, the lunch staff, everybody's just been phenomenal. It's been a great opening, and we're really excited that things are going well so far.
Nice. And Rodney, you've been great about being put on the spot, so I'll do it again. You know, how's the learning school and the special ed, and how's all that working with you guys?
They're all doing very well. The state required us to complete learning model plans for all special ed students. So any student's IEP in any way that is going to differ because of the hybrid or remote learning, they had to come up with an alternative plan on how they're delivering those services. So it's quite a bit that they needed to do to put that together, but they all got those learning plans out to families by last Friday. So that's gone well. The Transition Academy, we've, some of our vocational placements aren't available now, but they still have a few, so they're able to get out in the community and community connections. And the agency has additional precautions that they take in the community and training, like taking temperatures when they pick the kids up and going out to sites and things like that. So it's been really good. And I think aside from the COVID, we've expanded our ABA program to the middle school this year, and they're off to a great start. And we've expanded our STARS program to the high school this year, and that's off to a really good start too. So I think things are looking good.
Nice. Any questions for any of the schools?
Can I just say, it's not a question, but for anybody that, like, I teach, so I know, we just heard, oh, it's going so smoothly. Know that this is a testament to the leadership that we have here, and we are very, very fortunate, and we need to remember that, because this took a lot. It's, we're doing, it's a lot. And so I'm thrilled to hear that it's going so smoothly. I think kudos to Paul for having a plan early, and that let everybody else plan early, and that reduces everybody's anxiety. But it's like, they almost make it sound, I don't want anyone to think that, it's going great and it's easy. Yeah. It's not easy.
And that it's happening everywhere? Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So, hats off.
Yeah.
I actually do have a question. I think it's really more addressed to Andy and Chris, and really any of the other principals. But for the younger students, have you noticed any kind of unusual anxiety from the kids, or have they just treating it as a normal day? But I'm just wearing a mask and I gotta stay away from other kids as much as possible.
I haven't really noticed. In large part, I think our kids have had to and have done a great job adapting to this really big change. It really is amazing to see. I think some of our youngest learners are pre-K and K. They haven't known different, but to wear a mask to school. But for our returning learners, they've done a really good job. What I will have to say again is it has to go back to the teachers and how much they're reinforcing it in a positive way, and encouraging and coaching the kids to wear the mask to take care of others and to take care of themselves. But Brandy and I have not spent a lot of time supporting our young learners with redirection about having their mask on or any anxiety that comes with it.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same thing. I mean, obviously, students come in, it's a new school year, you're going to have reserved young learners anyways. So I think it's going to take a little bit more time to maybe peel some of those layers back and see the true personalities of our students. But our teachers are just doing a beautiful job creating a safe environment with these new rules.
Right, thank you.
Mark, if I can just add to that, because I think Andy and Chris are, to Amanda's point, not giving themselves enough credit in what they did with their teachers in terms of the teachers, for example, Andy and Chris and all of the principals at each site sent a video in advance of their reopening of, this is what the environment's going to look like. And I think for families that, I heard from other community members that was helpful. But in those elementary classrooms, the teachers also sent an introductory video of like, here's what's going to happen when you walk in, and this is where you're going to go, and this is what it looks like. So I think, the learners had that support coming in, that it showed, we know this is different for you, and here's how we're really thinking of your needs. And then just being in the classrooms with the teachers, when it's one of the first grade rooms, and they're like, oh, look at my new books I got for Read Aloud, and it was, Lucy Wears a Mask to School or Spot Learns Online. So they have gone out of their way to think about what are the experiences the children are having that are new that we can build into like our Read Alouds and talk about as a classroom community. And so they are doing an amazing job of really thinking through all of those little experiences, especially for the youngest learners who are feeling some of that uncertainty. And to credit our middle and high school teams, I know they're doing that as well in developmentally appropriate ways and having dialogue with students about what it means to be back. And they do understand what's different. And so I really do think the teaching teams under the leadership of the principals is trying to think of all of those small little things that are going to help the learners feel really connected. So I just want to recognize their efforts.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Audience of citizens. So something we started at the last meeting, a little different for anyone watching the live stream. Or if you can't be here, you could email the superintendent any comments or questions you have. So we'll get to, I think there's one there, but we have a couple audience members here. Bob is an audience member, not a Board of Finance.
Yeah, I got something to add concerning masks, because I've been up to school for the first week as a sub. And there's two aspects of the mask that we haven't discussed that actually occur pretty frequently. One is, if you don't know people real well, mask is a good way of not recognizing people. You just don't know who some of the kids are in the class. As soon as they take the mask off, say, oh, that's whoever. And the other thing is, until you're dealing with this many people wearing a mask, you don't realize how much we rely on the communication of the face in terms of when we're talking to people. Are they smiling? Are they frowning? Are they yawning? Whatever. It just hides a bunch of the communication you would normally have. Makes things just a little more different, and in some ways more difficult. But we're dealing with it.
All right. Good. Okay, so Paul, you had a public comment?
Yes, I have a public comment, actually in the form of two questions from Dr. Brown. The first question is, what is the result of the negotiations over the bus contract for 2019-20? Other towns were successful in refunds due to the reduced service because of COVID in the second half of the school year. What are the results of our attempts? So we did not work for a refund, we just worked for a reduction of pay. So similar to other towns with DACO, we kind of all negotiated together, and we ended up paying for the period of March through the end of the year, 80% of what was due. And with the CARES Act, we still had to pay drivers, etc. That extra 20% really came in handy because in the spring, even before we had a budget, we were purchasing PPE and other items we knew we were going to need. And ordering some of that stuff in the summer, we'd still be waiting for it for quite a while. So the answer to that is 80%. So we saved 20%. DACO is already asking, what are we going to do for this year, considering that there's 3 less days of school because we had PD days and we're not utilizing the buses on Wednesday. So at some point we'll be talking about this year as well. The second question is, when the top 10 high school students were announced, was apparent that there were no young men among the entire group. Are we failing in the education of our young men? Is our curriculum failing to interest them? Is there classroom or behavior bias? Has the STEM educational trend gone too far in a sexist direction? What needs to be done to result in a fair and balanced education? While all of us are very excited that our women students, our young women students are doing very well. Last year our top 10 were all women. However, last year, the class of 2019, it was evenly split 5 and 5, and in 2018 it was 6 and 4. So I don't know if that's a trend. Mr. Balda is going to do everything he can to crack into that top 10.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's a one-year situation. I don't think anything we're doing is discouraging males from taking the most ambitious courses along the way. And I applaud the fact that if you read the bios of what the young ladies had done, they certainly earned their spots. I don't think there was any bias pushing them unfairly in that direction. But you know, it was 10 women last year, but like I said, the year before that it was evenly split 5 and 5.
Paul, can I ask you just a follow-up question? When you said the contract from March until the end of the year, you meant the end of the school year?
The end of the school year, yes, I'm sorry.
Yep. Okay, so even for our later public comments, if anyone is out there wants to email, you can get it to Paul and we'll read it for the second half. I didn't mention earlier, Jeff could not be here tonight, family concerns, and Martha is at home, she is watching, and I've told her, if you notice, I have my phone on because she's part of the group, so if she has any comments or questions, she's gonna text me if anything comes up. So, all right, with that, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mark, second.
Second.
Jim, he beat you. Comments, questions? All good, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now we're down to reports. Now it's you guys. Turn it over, your first meeting for the year. Yep, all yours.
So, I know I'm glad to be back. I know the general sentiment of the people I've talked to is that they're also glad to be back. And it's actually better than what a lot of people expected. I don't know what we were expecting to walk into, but the general sentiment is that it's better than we thought. And I'm pretty impressed with like the compromises and the changes, like having lunch with our X block and all that stuff. I'm not really hearing much complaints from people I've talked to. And right now, the only anticipation and like concerns that I'm hearing is just about like Wednesdays, because we haven't done this yet, about like what the all online is going to be like.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Do you?
I think it's been a good reopening. I think it will take a little bit of time to adjust, but same thing I think for the juniors. I know the freshmen are adjusting well, so I think it'll be a good year.
And how is overall the feeling towards the Group A, Group B, and the schedule working out?
I don't really have any complaints with it. I like having my Thursday and Friday to go at my own pace. I mean, I think the most complaints is like, oh, I don't get to see some of my friends.
Yeah.
That's about it. But I think it's doing a pretty good job so far.
Any questions for them? Okay. Thank you. Welcome. As the year moves on with hopefully programs and sports, you never know, we add to your reports. Thank you. Personnel has nothing this evening. Policy curriculum, we have a whole list of second read approvals on policies we'll get to, but anything else you want to add to that policy committee?
No, we will pick up again before our next meeting. Yeah.
And finance, transportation, building and grounds. I know Paul just mentioned the discussion of, this year, this beginning for the bus schedule, so at some point I'm sure that will come up, but other than that, there hasn't been any issues. And Amy, Learn, how's things going with Learn? Have you communicated with them and how they're doing?
with the kids being home, it's been really hard for me to make
Yeah.
the meetings, but
Oh, yeah.
I do have the minutes from the last meeting, and if anyone is interested,
Yeah.
I can share them with you. So I'm hoping October will be the month. So.
And High School Building Committee, it's still on our agenda because we still don't officially own this building.
No updates.
No updates, so we keep it there. Superintendent's report, all yours.
We just have a brief report, but I want to go back for just a minute to a slide here. I know some of you may have heard on Facebook and other things, but Mr. Searles, Jonathan Searles, our middle school social studies teacher, went into quick action on Friday afternoon at lunch and helped a student that was pretty seriously choking over some food, perform the Heimlich maneuver, and that student is doing fine. So anytime you have a chance to learn CPR, and they usually throw in the Heimlich maneuver as part of that, it's certainly not a waste of time. So we presented Mr. Searles with a little token of our appreciation. I don't think there's any token big enough to present him, but we're really excited, and I know the family is very grateful as well. So it's nice to have a hero in our schools. So let's just talk about the reopening very quickly. I know we spoke of the Rossi family, but our Town of East Hampton Rotary Club donated masks and face shields, and they have another 2,000 masks coming for us in October. When we went to pick up the Rossi family mask of 2,000, they drew an extra 2,000, so we've acquired 4,000 masks from the Rossi family. And Chris and I both signed letters of thanks to the Rossi family and the Rotary Club. So here's our challenge, and I've said this at multiple meetings that we're open, and now our biggest challenge is staying open. So in my messages home, I am constantly reminding people to make sure that you don't come if you are feeling ill. We're asking parents to check their students if there's a fever of over 100. To stay home. In fact, we're even pushing people to, if you are feeling ill in any way, just get tested. And face coverings, obviously, we don't have to talk about that. We're working on social distancing, of course, hand sanitizing, and the buses. It's interesting because we really encourage students to be driven by their parents. And so, especially in the elementary schools, we're having buses pull away with 6 students in them. And Andy, I don't know how many cars today?
We've been averaging like 85 to 90 cars per hybrid section.
So when we start,
it was even more than that.
When we start in October, that could be close to 200 cars dropping off. But our hope is that as people see the buses pull away and realize they have more kids in their car than are on the bus, that it may be wise to at least consider riding the bus again, especially as time goes on. So just a couple of things, because what we're doing with our communications home, if we have a case of a student or a faculty member, we will alert the entire school community. For example, the school community got a note from us early last week after the first day of school. We did have a Group B child who, even before coming to school, had tested positive. The child wasn't feeling well, parents had him tested. And so we communicated the fact that one of our Group B students, who had not even started school yet, was not going to be in, and a relative of that student was now in quarantine. So anytime there's a case, we are going to communicate that to the entire school district, just so people noticed. And we don't want anyone to hear things that aren't true, so we're giving out all of the facts. We are not necessarily reporting on the number of people that have to quarantine for one reason or another. There's a lot of reasons that people are quarantined. We have families coming back, or one family's going out of state, they're going to come back. Obviously that child's going to have to quarantine for 14 days. We have other people that have been indirectly exposed, not necessarily through school, and are quarantined. So we're not alerting people as to the number of staff or students quarantining. But even if we have a case that happens outside of the school, we're just letting people know anytime we have a case. I'm urging people, and at my Superintendent's Advisory Council, for anybody that's really interested, we'll explain, this matrix of charts that we have here. They've been in the update, but this is the one that we're going to see all year long and as we get into flu season. So this is going to be the most common situation where somebody has symptoms, but they've not had any close contact. To their knowledge, they've not had any close contact with anybody with COVID, but they've got a fever, or they've got sniffles, or they've got body aches, or things like that. So in those cases, and that's going to be common as flu comes around, in those cases, we're asking people to stay home and get tested right away. Anybody with a negative test can come back to school 24 hours after the symptoms end. So negative test, you are in the clear to come back. If the individual isn't tested, we kind of assume that because they're showing symptoms that they have it. The period, if you have COVID, that you must stay out is 10 days. We'll also accept a doctor's note, and I use this case over and over that, a young child gets a fever, the doctor says, I'm treating them for ear infection. When the fever ends, they can come back to school. That's fine too. And then obviously a positive test, student stays out for 10 days from the time the symptoms started. So that's going to be our most common situation throughout the year. The ones that are going to be a little less common are symptoms and close contact. So obviously if somebody's been around someone with COVID and they're showing symptoms, in all cases, negative test, not tested, or positive test, you're out for 10 days since the onset of symptoms. And then the other one is no symptoms, but now you've been exposed to someone with COVID, and in that case, a negative or no test, a 14-day self-quarantine is in place, and then if you're positive, it's 10 days. So people ask, why is it 14 if I don't have it, but 10 days if I do have it? And the reason it is because 14 days is the incubation period. Once you have COVID, it runs its course in 10 days, but it could take 14 days for it to develop. So if anybody has any questions on these, I'm putting them in my update. In this week's update, I gave a little explanation of each. But we are treating every case like this. We did not make this up. This is the DPH guidelines, and for every single case, we're going to follow the DPH guidelines. So full in-person now, what we're planning is October 5. So this is our first full 5-day week. The students are curious about Wednesday, how that works. So are we. We're all hoping, we're all looking forward to seeing how Wednesday works out. If the metrics stay the same and we have a low transmission rate, there's only 3 of those right now, and we go back to the full in-person on October 5. So keep in mind, this is the state guidelines for what we do right now. We're in the yellow. We have less than 10 new cases per 100,000 population. So the DPH says you can do more in-person learning. Now, we are cautious because if you read on our Facebook pages and in my update and on the town website, East Hampton has had a bump up in cases. Part of that they think could possibly be kids going back to college and getting tested who may have been asymptomatic. People are coming back from vacation now. So it is possible that this is just a little blip, but we are watching that closely because if that was to spike, we would be staying, if we're in this category in early October, we're staying in the hybrid learning model for at least another several weeks until we make the next case. Yes?
Are the percentages being applied to East Hampton or the state?
So it is unlikely that the governor, unless we get way over into the red, is going to shut down the whole state like we did before.
I'm guessing, because the East Hampton population is, say, about 13,000. Right?
No, we would apply the percentage to our town. Or, in the case of the DPH, they might look at our region. For example, Chatham Health District is East Hampton, Portland, East Chatham, Marlborough, and Colchester. If there was a big orange spike or red spike, we could get a call from Russ Melman at the Chatham Health District saying, you know what, I think you guys should consider staying in the hybrid for a little bit longer.
So maybe I'm not.
Okay.
So let's say East Hampton has just call it a 10,000 population.
Sure.
It's a little bit more than that. The math works easier for that. So based on that, so if we have 3 cases in East Hampton, and that's my question, is this measurement going to be based on East Hampton by itself or the state in total? You know, because if it's East Hampton, if we have 2 cases, we're going to be we're going to be out of the yellow.
Well, if you look at what Russ has been giving on that weekly basis, he does the percentage for each town. And you're right, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden if we get 2 cases that we need to move out. But we're following his recommendations at this point. So you're right, this has kind of been done over by the state. And if you look at recent figures, Marlborough was pushed way up high because they have a really small population and they had a little spike in cases. So it looked like they should be in remote learning at that point. You know, we can scale the results and look at where things fall regionally.
And then isn't also there the option, we talked about it before, it could be school specific. That it wouldn't be the entire district if there was.
It can be school specific if we have 2, 3, 4 cases in the high school. The DPH would shut us down for a period if there's a spike of that many cases in a school. And then you can go back to the hybrid learning. So we don't have to shut down the whole district. We don't have to do the same thing as far as schedule in all buildings as well.
Yeah, and when you said there was a bump up in East Hampton, can you elaborate? Is that like 1 to 2, or is it 3 to 15?
There were 7 new cases in a time, and previous to that, we were seeing 1 or 0 for the month of July and August.
It was the week before.
It's a week. Well, no, it was a 2-week period that they reported 7.
And then my last question, potentially. So we're following DPH. Is the state mandating us to follow DPH?
It would not be wise if our board made a decision that was against what DPH is recommending.
Right. No, I get that. I'm trying to understand. Is the state board of ed and the communications from the state saying you need to listen to your local DPH representatives or organizations, and it's a requirement?
There's a struggle in who makes decisions right now. Just look at football. Like look at where football was. Yeah. The CIAC said yes. The DPH said you should not be playing it. So schools around the state are saying, well, the CIAC says yes. The DPH is saying by no means should there be football. And so superintendents are saying, we're following every other guideline of the DPH. Why are we not following this particular guideline? And then the governor stepped in, or his office stepped in, and now we're still awaiting a decision for football. Football is still up in the air, unless something changed in the last hour.
The DPH came out late this afternoon and said there is no change in their stance, that it's a high-risk activity and they are not in favor of it.
Yeah.
The governor recommends playing football in February. I don't know if the governor leaves his house in February, but it's going to cold. So that's probably not going to work, but that's a challenge. And again, it's DPH guidelines or no.
So at this point, a long-term school decision has not been made. Everybody's in either full open or hybrid. Some schools that have had a couple of cases have closed down a school. There's not a district that is completely shut down because they had 1 or 2 cases.
No, I understand. And then again, and obviously made no secret of my frustration in certain aspects of this whole process in the last meeting. But the idea that we're, to a degree, not completely, but to a degree, driving our educational model based on individuals at DPH
So, Mark.
I understand it to a point, but it's having somebody who doesn't have the expertise driving the decisions, I'm not sure that's the best comprehensive approach.
So these guidelines, DPH have insisted on as far as how we treat cases. So if you look at this one and say, okay, we have a student who has COVID. Now in the high school, that student takes 6 different classes. So anybody that was within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, now I have to have them quarantined for 14 days. And that's an absolute. So if Chatham Health gets a call and says, so-and-so has it, he calls me and says, Paul, you have a student that has it. They start helping us do the contact tracing, and we've got to alert any family that student with it, if that student was within 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes, and you can imagine that's quite a few students. Right. So something like that, that's why high schools are shutting down for 2 to 5 days just to figure out, okay, who came in contact with that person and how many kids are we going to have to quarantine. So you can see if there were 2, 3, 4, 5 kids who end up getting it, basically shutting down a school for 2 weeks. And I think that's the more likely scenario than us going into just a total shutdown again. Now, who knows what happens in November, December. The flu, because we're all wearing masks, the flu may not become a prevalent disease, so we're not going to be juggling saying, is it flu or is it COVID? But right now, we're planning to open on October 5 with everybody coming back.
So, the comment you just said about, or the scenario with a high school student, and then you have to do the contact tracing. So you could potentially, if that was to happen at any school, shut it down for 2 days to do that contact tracing, to determine who needs to be quarantined.
Correct. Now keep in mind that the elementary school and middle school, the same students are in the same class all day long. They barely move out of that classroom except to go outside. Yeah. And the middle school, a little bit to go to lunch. Otherwise, they're with the same students. We did not do cohorting at the high school because obviously, we wanted the students to get the courses they need, the electives they need, and it would be impossible to group cohorts of everybody taking the same class. Okay. So that's why the high school is a little more complicated than the other buildings. We could quarantine a class. The teacher could do distance learning at home for 2 weeks, and the rest of the building could function at the elementary schools. Yeah. Okay. Does that make you feel better?
No.
Okay.
I mean, look, I want to be clear. I said this last week, and I'll say it again. I appreciate all the efforts that everybody has gone through, and it's just the slide that says if you get a negative test, you still have to be out for 14 days. There's things that just are seemingly illogical. And I've heard some things, again, and I don't know how true it is or not true or whatever, but some medical professionals said, look, if you got a negative test, you've been exposed, and if you get tested within a few days and you have a negative test, you're in the clear. Right? Now, I'm sure 100% of medical professionals don't have the same opinion. Yeah. But the reality is we're, you're never going to have a full 100% consensus on this issue. So, I can see a scenario where, no symptoms, had close contact with somebody who's diagnosed with COVID. Well, and in a high school setting, you got half school has to be out for 14 days, and 90% of those students end up testing negative and never get it. And so now you've negatively impacted their educational structure. To be very, very, very cautious. But, it is the world that we have to live in. Just because Mark Lambert doesn't think it makes sense, it's really making a lot of difference.
This matrix has been the non-negotiable with DPH. DPH is never going to say you have to close the schools, but they are going to say kids who have been exposed have to, or kids or staff who have been exposed have to quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah. I mean, I actually started listening to Lamont's press conference today, and I turned it off because he just answered a few questions and he was evasive. And I'm like, I just can't listen to something. But anyway, I'm done. Thank you very much, Paul.
So I'm going to let Mary talk about our hybrid learners versus our remote learners. Our remote learning begins this week. Obviously, we're in the week 2 of hybrid learning.
So I talked a little bit about this at our last meeting.
Sure.
We discussed the fact that for hybrid learning, I know you've seen those charts. We have our A students in on Mondays and Tuesdays, our B students are in on Thursdays and Fridays, and we're starting the synchronous lessons. At the middle and high school, the students are really following a slightly modified but very close to the typical school day synchronous schedule. So they'll be logging in for classes. Teachers have the discretion to decide if their A and B students are in really different places, they may split that teaching time and focus some to A students and some to B students. Or if they want to bring the whole classroom community together, especially because students are not necessarily getting to see their friends on the other side of the hybrid, they have that option. But that's really a decision they'll make instructionally based on the content and skills the students are working towards. At the elementary level in the hybrid model, the students have a morning meeting to really set their day, to check in on their classroom community, and then the teachers host reading and math groups for the A students, and then again for the B students. For our remote learners, we have a different model, and we're really kicking off remote learning this week. Our remote learning families are invited to come in on Wednesday and pick up their materials for learning, which again varies dramatically between K-5 and 6-12. And that has to do with how we're managing remote learning for our K-5 versus 6-12 students. At the K-5 level, we have remote learning coordinators who are either a grade level teacher or one of our specialists who will facilitate remote learning through a Google Classroom, prepare a weekly learning map that closely mirrors what's happening in the classrooms. Families would then work with their student to lead them through those learning opportunities. We're really leveraging a lot of our digital tools, which have instructional components to help with the teaching and learning. And then our remote learning coordinators will give feedback to families. They're hosting office hours. And we sent out a mailing to our remote learning families last Thursday. Another went out today from Andy and Chris explaining the process of materials pickup and what specifically they can expect. Those K-5 remote learning coordinators are developing welcoming letters. We have a whole explanation of all the digital tools they'll be working with. They're picking up all of the math materials. For our primary learners in grades K through 3, they're getting their foundations materials. At the intermediate level, they're getting spelling connections. We're connecting them with reading resources. And we expect that remote learning families, should they choose to stay in that learning model for the year, we're going to invite them back in December and in March at the trimester breaks to get more materials from us. We created individual math manipulative kits for all K-5 learners, so the remote families will get those as well to support learning. We will also, through the work of our K-12 library media team, have access for remote learning families to our collections so that if they want to be able to access books and take out resources, that'll be something else that will facilitate for them. For students in grades 6 through 12, we did partner with Ingenuity. Ingenuity is an online curriculum, and we went this route after exploring a lot of different solutions. You may have heard in other districts, at the high school level in particular, where courses get really specific in nature, that teachers are zooming students in from home and teaching students in front of them and students online at the same time. We evaluated some of the technological aspects of that, what we would need in terms of mics and cameras and the resources to support the at-home learners, and really found that that would be a large burden on the district. We don't have a large IT staff to troubleshoot all those issues live, as well as for learners at home. Additionally, we really felt it was important to have a tool that was designed for remote learning. That model that I just described, that's not what, classroom teaching is not designed to also be checking in and everyone at home, are you okay there? There's a lot of really practical challenges with that. You've all participated in Zoom meetings. If somebody else is in the same room as you, trying to be on that Zoom call, it creates an echo, so you can imagine a whole classroom of students trying to talk and interact on Zoom while people are at home. That's just an example of a practical challenge. not to mention some of the Zoom bombs that districts are dealing with where outside groups are trying to disrupt some of those classes in all kinds of ways. So we felt that Ingenuity really gave us a high quality product designed for remote learning. We explored other districts that already use this tool. Some districts use it as a blended learning tool as part of their primary curriculum. And also touch base with other districts who decided to use Ingenuity in their remote learning solutions. It offers us the core academic curriculum in math, science, social studies, and language arts. It also provides us world language courses for our learners. It gives us access to academic electives at the high school level. So we really felt that was going to be a good way to make sure that our learners were connected to a resource that was a vetted curriculum. It has a live tutor component, so if you're going through an Algebra 2 lesson and have a question, you can click for a tutor and then interact with a teacher from the Ingenuity side. We have remote learning coordinators at this level who will be overseeing those courses and how the curriculum is laid out. And they'll also, at the 612 level, be providing feedback and doing grading for the student work as well. So that's really our two models, K-5 and 612. All of our learning, whether you're hybrid at home for a few days or you're a remote learner, is obviously based on your access to a device. And we talked to you a little bit at our last meeting that we had some concerns with the timeline of those devices. So the good news is, at the K-5 level, all of our students have access to devices. We did a lot of work to repair and renew devices over the summer. I give a lot of credit to our IT department. So the K-5 devices are definitely sort of hand-me-down devices, but they've been refurbished. Our 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders had devices as part of our one-to-one program, so those devices are really growing with them. And we had ordered, as part of our district goals last year to make sure we had that one-to-one program, new devices for grades 6, 7, and 9. So the devices that we ordered brand new for 6th, 7th, and 9th graders are delayed, as we feared that they might. As you've probably seen in the news, there's really a nationwide shortage and supply chain backup in that regard. So when we became aware of those delays, we worked to survey our families in grades 6, 7, and 9 to see which families would have access to a device temporarily at home that they could use to support either the Synchronous Wednesdays, the hybrid days, or if they were a remote learning family. And then we asked anyone who wouldn't have access to a temporary device to let us know so that we could equip them with one of our older devices that we really feel is closer to end of life, but that we felt we could support for a few weeks, as that's the timeline we've most recently been told our devices should be coming in. So we got that information. We sent out the survey last Wednesday. We got that information and turned around a deployment of temporary devices to anybody in the B hybrid on Friday so that they could leave with a device to access their hybrid lessons on Monday and Tuesday of this week. And starting tomorrow, we'll make sure that any A student in grades 6, 7, or 9 who needs their device for Wednesday and the rest of the week has a temporary device. And any remote learning family in those grades that has also advised us that they need a temporary device will have access to that on Wednesday when they come in to pick up the rest of their learning materials. Any questions?
Anyone? Thoughts? Mark?
Seriously?
No, I know. No. Anyone else?
So just to give you an update, I know at our August 24th meeting, we gave you an enrollment update of which students were in which model. We're still running the same, about 1% homeschooling. We've gone from about 9 to 10% in remote. It's still about 89%. It's actually slightly under 10%, slightly over 89% in person. So we have homeschool, we have 18 students that are homeschooling but are still enrolled. We're giving them the opportunity to stay enrolled until October 5 when we go back to full in-person. At that point, they would need to unenroll with the 15 that have already unenrolled. And these are families that have traditionally not been homeschooling. So they're not doing the remote learning, they are completely cutting ties, and they're responsible for their own children's education completely. Remote learners, we have 178 spread out through the ages, and I'll show you that in a minute. And in person, 1,633 students. That adds up to the 1,829 students that are in-district students. Our total enrollment with magnet school outplacement, everything is 1884, but the 1829 is made up of these students here. So here is a list of, at the top, the homeschooling students. And just out of curiosity, I'm showing you the numbers that we had at the end of August, because we had done the survey, but we had, instead of hearing from all 1,800, we were about 200 short. So we weren't quite sure where they were going to land. Now we know where everybody's landed. And a few people called to change their mind. There were some hybrid that wanted remote. There were remote that wanted hybrid. There were a few that jumped into homeschooling. So the black number at the bottom is the number of students at each grade level that are homeschooling. You can see at the high school, obviously, homeschooling is not the best option. And then at the bottom, this is the August, the pink numbers are the August 24th numbers, and you can compare that to the actual numbers as of, this is actually one student off. This is from Friday. But you can see by the end of August, we actually had pretty close to the amount of students. So once again, the bottom number is the remote learners. And like we've said, whether you're a homeschool student or a remote learner, you are not stuck in that track. Some school districts are making people wait until the end of the quarter or halfway through the year. Anytime a student wants to come back, we will welcome them back. If a student feels like they're nervous or an adult in their family becomes ill and they want to go from hybrid or in-person to remote, the Edgenuity program and obviously our own curriculum, we can move students into remote learning if that becomes necessary as well. So reopening does not come cheap.
Thank you, Karen.
And Karen has been working on this. Obviously, we started purchasing necessary materials in May and June. The desk shields we were able to get in June. But this is what it takes to run a building in the age of COVID-19. We moved a lot of our sinks and toilets to touchless. We did some ventilation, air quality upgrades. The PPE for staff, students, 20,000 masks. That doesn't include the donated ones. 17,000 gloves, 2,400 gowns, desk shields, plexiglass, face shields, disinfectant wipes, etc. The Ingenuity program is about $38,000, but all of our students have access to that. So if we went into a long period of full distance learning, we could supplement the teacher program, what the teacher's doing, with some of the Ingenuity lessons as well. Obviously, we're still waiting for our Chromebooks to come in. And the bottom is some of the funding sources. As you're aware, we're not overly pleased with our amount of COVID relief money that we're getting. In fact, it's gone down. It used to be 80,000 something. The state took money back instead of giving us some.
So could you talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take your track of thinking about, you know. Okay, so the state put out a questionnaire, so to speak, to you on recommended what you need to cover these expenses.
Yeah.
So initially, when you did that, and it was like a crunch, you had what, a day to do that?
I think we had about 3 days.
Okay, so
with no detail, it was just how much you think you're going to need, how much you think you're going to need. I put 1.6 million.
Okay, so 1.6. Let's start there. And then in a matter of how long before, when you had 3 days to submit that, did you get a response on that first 80,000?
It was about 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
3.5.
So they took considerable time to get to.
That equals a week.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yes. So in 3 days you put 1.6, and in 3.5 weeks that went down to 80,000. What then happened to make it the 45? Besides.
Well, the 42,940 is the money that we originally got, the federal money that we got.
Federal, yeah.
The next number, the Connecticut COVID Relief Fund, is the one that was 80,000, with notice that it's about 45,000 in PPE and 25,000 in transportation. Now, what the state has told us is that even though that's what you got, Karen has highlighted very well, the opportunity for funding may be greater. So they're saying, get ready, get your receipts ready, because even the towns that got $500,000, if you don't have the receipts to back it, you're not getting the money. We have plenty of receipts to pull in, you know, at least $500,000, and we did not go into all detail. We just kind of highlighted some of the categories.
So here's what I'm getting at. Do we need to make a vocal statement, comment, something to go along with our receipts?
Well, we have not got the process for how to submit receipts at this point. We're expecting it.
Because I don't think anyone would object to that, us speaking up a little louder, if we had to.
I don't know, I'm kind of reserved.
I know, I don't know about that. I don't know, yeah, maybe twist your arm, but you see where I'm getting at?
Posted on that, and we could,
yes.
You know, if they're willing to take more receipts, I don't want a letter blasting them, and they'll say, well, let's just slide that pile of receipts over there.
I think we just send them a River East article from last week.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we'll keep up.
Does anybody have any questions of Karen on this sheet? Yeah.
I just have a quick question. I know that we had some funds at the end of last fiscal year. Does this include those funds, or, because I know we bought a bunch of stuff with the overage from last year with the savings, at least that's what I had thought. So does that include?
As time goes on, I will give you that on both last year and this year, because the COVID relief money from the state does go back to March. That's why this is spending from both fiscal years. And so, yes, some of these things, like the iReady and Uzella, came from last year. The Chromebook original amount came from capital funds from last year, but much of the rest of this items are from this year's budget.
This is just the general.
Some of the fixtures were ordered prior to the end of the school year. Maybe it's maybe 30% of it is in last year's budget. Perhaps might be a fair estimate.
Good.
But that fund, the Connecticut fund, will be back to reimbursing that if that's how it goes.
Can I ask a question about the Chromebook price increase? That's an increase after they were ordered?
Well, keep in mind, we had to change vendors.
And
so
causing the delay, right?
So the vendor that we ordered from originally could not even give us a date because they needed parts from China, everything was on hold.
Yeah.
So they would not even give us a date. And this was July, everything's a blur, but July. So Rich and Karen and I decided to switch vendors. But by switching vendors, they weren't selling it at March prices anymore. Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So that accounts for the increase.
Anyone else?
Just two questions.
Yep.
One, the dismissal app, could you explain what that is?
Yeah. We researched and did a competitive bid for a school dismissal app, which is actually a very common tool in school districts at this point, which facilitates the ability for parents to let the school know when they're coming in and their estimated arrival time. So while many districts automated this process, I don't know, in the last 5 years, I would say, we really wanted to do it this year because it essentially allows, and for lack of a better expression, for curbside pickup of your child.
Okay.
So it automates all of the communication with the school. It allows the administrators and anybody else who's outside at dismissal to see on their phone, as opposed to some of the other solutions, which parents are coming. It gives very important safety information like the make and model and license plate, sort of Uber-like, of the car that's coming to pick up the child, and also communicates, and this is critical, inside to the classroom, so that the teacher who has the child can get that notification, and then we can match that child to the appropriate app. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Okay.
And the reason we looked at that is because of those numbers we talked about earlier, where Memorial and Center particularly have high volumes, but as does the middle school. So we purchased that for the buildings K8.
Okay. And then the gloves, where are we using the gloves?
The nurses,
Okay.
so the nurses use the gloves. Anybody who works with special needs children, some of our special needs children have unique concerns, everything from toileting concerns to other, maid. They'll need gloves for that.
Janitors,
Right.
the custodians, the
And,
cafeteria.
these are one-use gloves. These are not all-day gloves.
No. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for that, Karen. All right, presentations, we are not tonight, correct? No. No other. So, we move on to policies.
One thing on policy, if we could hold on 9325.2, Nancy Oakley and I were talking today, we found some discrepancies in that final version of that policy.
So, item 10.8.
We're going to bring 9325 back to the policy subcommittee on the 28th.
How dare you? All right, so let's go through these one by one. If you had them from your last meeting, the printout. So, any comments, remarks regarding the first one? 9325, public participation at Board of Education meetings. Were there any questions on that? Hearing none. Then we have a motion to approve that policy. I'm not going to read each one because we have a lot of them. So, motion to approve policy 9325. Is that a motion?
So moved.
Jim? Oh,
Second.
Nancy O, second. Comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Second one is 9323. Agenda, construction, delivery of the meeting material. So that was updating that one. Any questions, comments on that policy? We have a motion to approve 9323.
So moved.
Mark?
Second.
Second, Nancy K. Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Policy 9322, public and executive session. Updates on that. Let's start motion to approve that. Nancy O, second Nancy K. Comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Policy 9321.1, Board of Education work sessions. It's awfully short. Did you notice that? I just had to say,
2 words.
Yeah. Motion to approve that policy.
So moved.
Mark, second. Jim, comments, questions there? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 9326, minutes. That was an overdue update. Motion to approve that policy. Amy, second. Nancy K. Comments there? All those in favor?
Aye.
9327, electronic mail communication. Do we have a motion to approve 9327?
So moved.
Mark, second. Jim, comments, questions there? All those in favor?
Aye.
9330, school board system records. Again, major updates there, minor updates to that one. Motion to approve that one. Nancy O, Amy second. Comments, questions there? All those in favor?
Aye.
We are holding off on 10-8 till next meeting. And 10-9 finally is, which I did not bring back with me, but 9400, monitoring products and processes. We have a motion to approve that. Jim, second. Nancy, O. Questions there, anyone? All those in favor?
Aye.
Whew. Policy has been busy. New business for anyone for future agendas, updates. I know I threw mine out at the beginning, again to the schools. Seriously, if there's any issues, concerns, questions that we can help do anything with, please let us know. All right. Anyone else? Future? No? Okay. No personnel. Any new audience and citizen members come online?
Yes, there is one question from Natalie Hurt. I have noticed that those families that decided to pursue remote learning will not receive Chromebooks to begin studies until this Wednesday, which is 4 school days after the in-person students. Will those 4 days be made up another time? And the answer is, based on how we've constructed the curriculum, K-5, those students should not be behind if they decide to come in.
Okay.
So there won't be an issue. And Edgenuity is self-paced. We're going to, our remote learning coordinators will make sure
So
that
they
the
can
students
start
keep
up.
up.
Okay.
But they can do, if they want to work 5 hours on a Saturday to do the work in 6 through 12, they may need to, like other homework. So we're pretty confident that remote learners should not be behind.
Good. Yeah.
Here, you had mentioned that there's online help for Edgenuity. Is that weekends included?
I have to double check. I'm pretty sure that it isn't during the weekends, that it's when you're accessing the curriculum in the school days, but I can double check.
All right, any other public comments? Questions? No? Okay, I just had a quick question. We were talking about the buses and pickups and all that. High school, how's it going with the number of students driving, especially at the high school, and mainly parking? How's it all working out?
It's going really well. Matt and Dave Luke and Sean Russell spent a lot of time this summer planning it. So what we do is we start dismissal a few minutes before 2:15, and we have our student drivers and their passengers. I believe my phrase is, please gather your belongings and leave the East Hampton parking lot safely and promptly. So the students are gone before the buses leave, and then the parents, somebody get a little frustrated, they'll last. But I mean, by 2:20, 2:22, everyone's out. I mean, safely, and so far, knock on wood, it's been going very smoothly.
All right, so even parking spaces isn't an issue right now?
Right now, because we only have half the kids every 2 days. But we also stagger it where students who leave early for senior sign up for the park in the front, so that parents start arriving around 2 because they don't want to get their kid to go. We're encouraging them to park in the front of the building.
So they can get out.
Impediment to the buses. There's no driving down the side of the property where people are trying to come in and out. It just flow through in the park, and it hasn't been an issue so far.
Typically with parking, we'll always have enough spots in the fall. It's when you get to the spring and the juniors and even the sophomores start to get their licenses, where it might get a little tighter. But we're keeping a close eye on the number of spots.
Or October 5th if we do a full open.
We anticipate no issues with parking spots for students.
Good. Okay, with that, have a good night. Motion to adjourn. All Mark. Mark has made that motion. We are done. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.